11 attributes of highly successful salespeople. And this is, I want these trainings to be interactive and just to talk through them for the folks that are here. So I'll probably be, especially the brand ambassadors, pinging you guys for this so that we can talk about real world examples. But what I've done here is over the course of my 16 years of successfully selling hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Like I'm probably approaching 200 million of annual recurring sales that have been made. Now, we've had churn over those 16 years. Customers have came and gone, right? But just the internet company alone, right, built to $20 million in revenue. Last year for Masergy, we did 3 million in sales just for them last year alone, right? We're probably eclipsing that number or getting close to that number this year in new sales on one big customer that we brought to those guys. So whether it's SMB or it's enterprise sales, these attributes that you either naturally have or that you build upon and you establish as you perfect and hone your skills are what has contributed the most to my success and to the salespeople that have came into my organization and I have helped train. So I'm really excited to cover these with you guys. So I'm just going to break these down one by one. We're going to walk through them and then we're going to talk about real world scenarios that would apply as we have conversations around managed IT service sales. That's our core competency of what we want to sell here. It with cyber compliance, so on and so forth, cloud services, and then the other products and services, UCaaS, data, mobility, those just wrap around it, as we all know. So jumping right in, the very first attribute that we need to have or to be aware of in order to be successful is we need to know the conversation that we're going to have with a customer. And what we've done is we've broken the conversation with a customer down into 5 different stages of a conversation with a salesperson, right? And I've outlined those. So I'm going to pull some documents over from time to time, and then I'll be pulling this back over. So we're going to start with the introduction. The introduction is very simply just stating who we are and who we're with. There's not a lot to it. But then we have the short story. Now, this is where things get really interesting. Our short story with a customer is where we set the stage of whether or not they're going to like us and whether they're going to realize our relevancy in the first 30 seconds to 2 minutes of having this conversation. And I'm going to break this down here in a second on how we simplify sales even more granular than this right here. But then the third thing that we get into in the conversation is the presentation. So our presentation is where we're literally laying out our value proposition to the customer. And then the fourth stage of the conversation is the close, where we are asking for the business and making it easy for the customer to say yes, sizzling the deal at the end, so on and so forth. And then the fifth stage of the conversation is rehashing, where we are reiterating our value and then asking for referrals, additional business. So what we've done is we've simplified the sales game. The first thing we want to do with a customer is we got to connect. And if you've ever ran a phase 1 meeting here at Blue Equinox, you know the way that we do this is by getting the customer to tell their story of their life. It's the thing they know the most, the thing they're the most comfortable with. And then when we go into our short story, that's where we become super relevant. Whether you're an appointment setter or a salesperson or an MSP, it doesn't matter. If you're talking to a customer, you want to connect with them, and then you want to be relevant as quickly as possible so that they see value in the conversation. And then we state our intentions. Our intentions, expose their biggest problem. We do that through education. This is where product knowledge is so instrumental. I run into salespeople all the time, and their go-to line is, hey, let me look at what you're doing today with IT, and I'm going to see if I can save you 10 to 20% of what you're spending today. Well, the problem with that is today, in the world we live in today, there's no savings for what they need to purchase. These are new products and services that we're adding to our portfolio because they're just coming into existence. Did artificial intelligence exist 5 years ago for us to be able to sell a solution to our customer that has behavioral learning? No, it did not. Do we have that today? Yes, we do. So we have to educate with product knowledge. We have to substantiate the value and state our intentions so that these customers can see value in doing business with us. Right. And then we continue to educate and inform. And then at the end, when we go for the close, we make it easy for them to say yes. And the reason and the way that we do that here is we transition into our project management and account management, and how simple it is if they do business with Blue Equinox for us to make that process, to deliver that white glove process to them. And we've seen firsthand, real world experiences, is after you close a deal, the deal is not done until this project management process is followed through excellent, right? Excellent project management gets customers installed and builds them. The job is not done when we sign a deal. When we sign the contract, the job is not done, right? We tell customers all the time, hey man, sign the agreement, and if you decide, if something comes up and we need to put a pin in this or cancel it, well, it's pretty easy to do that. It's a part of making it easy for them to say yes, because it's true. We've probably all experienced a customer that had turmoil or problems or something, like the experience didn't go the way they planned and they canceled the order before it installs. I can tell you, selling thousands and thousands of customers, it's happened. It's happened to me. Right? It was unintentional, but it happens. So we have to ensure this project management experience goes well. So we've got to make it easy by offering that. And I'm going to show you guys, right, how this makes us unique as we get deeper into this conversation. This compartmentalizes the 5 steps to a conversation, and it makes it super simple for us to be able to speak to a customer. So just really quick here. Derek, when you're talking to a customer and you know that when you're compartmentalizing, you know that you're in the short story, what's the biggest value having the wherewithal of knowing just where you're at in the conversation and that you're in the short story?
Well, understanding where I'm at in the point is just being able to kind of have a guide, you know. It's not necessarily written word for word on what I'm supposed to say, but it helps keep me kind of on point to ensure I'm not missing anything. I'm developing the right rapport with the client, and I'm developing the right value with Blue Equinox and our partners for the client.
Exactly. You know what you need to be saying at that stage in the conversation with the customer, right? And part of what we're covering today is how we establish a framework of how we operate the same way every single time. Because we have a saying here in our sales training that to begin with, this starts out as a protocol. It's a procedure, it's a protocol. But then once you do the protocol enough times, 21 times to be exactly, it becomes a habit, it becomes habitual. And then you start to do it without thinking about it. Right? Like riding a bicycle is one that people like to use a lot. It's like riding a bicycle. You just never forget how to do it because it becomes habitual to you because you did it so many times as a kid. Well, we take it one step further here, and we want it to become a beautiful addiction. A beautiful addiction is a positive thing in our life that we become addicted to because of the results that it brings us. In this process of following the 5 steps of the conversation and simplifying the sales process, when you do it the right way, that's what happens. So it becomes a beautiful thing. Okay, so I'm going to jump off of that. I'm going to pull this back over, and we're going to talk about the second thing, which is knowing the excuses. Okay, I say all the time that as long as you have a plan, there's no reason to panic. And as long as you have a response that's smarter than the excuse that you just heard, then it makes logical sense for the conversation to keep going. So if we want to be highly successful salespeople, right, we have to know what the excuses are that could potentially come out of our customers' mouths when we're speaking on the subjects that we talk about every single day, right? So what we've done is, once we've scripted, right, the intro, the short story, the presentation, the close, and the rehash of what we say in words, vernacular that's relevant to our business, once we've said that, right, we've created this book of stories that's specific to industries that identify their biggest problem in their industry and the technology problems that we know that they're facing, right? We can then be prepared for these excuses. And we have what we call the pivot, right? We have rebuttals and we have pivots in the conversation to keep it going the entire time. And I'm going to share this with everyone, this workbook, when we're done. And then we have yes, yes questions that when we make these statements or we ask these questions, the customer, they don't have a choice but to agree and to allow us to push through whatever that excuse was. But just to point out a few of the excuses, right? For MSPs, particularly, we have an outsourced IT company that takes care of that for us today. Here's the rebuttal. We've been working with the company for 5, 7, 10 years, and we're completely happy with the relationship. This has got to be the one that we hear the most. We've got somebody that takes care of that, and we've been working with them for years. You know what, Mr. Customer, we love hearing that, because that normally means that they're complacent as hell, and we need to come in immediately and point out all the things that they've failed to do over the last 3, 4, 5 years that you've allowed them to get complacent doing the job as a managed service provider for you, right? We feel holes in the armor, right? As soon as we get in there and we start our audit process, we start to educate the customer on all the things that are not being done that should be done. And that relationship that they love so much, well, they start to not love it so much. And they start to question of whether or not that's the best decision for their business. So these rebuttals to these excuses allow you to keep the conversation moving forward. So if you know the excuses and you know the rebuttal that's smarter than the excuse that you just heard, you can keep the conversation going. Okay, so excuses, rebuttals. Anybody have any questions or any input on excuses or rebuttals? So I'm going to share something with you guys right here. Check this out. So this is Overcoming Objections Guide for Compliance as a Service. What you're going to hear a lot of the time from customers is these statements. We've managed compliance internally to date and see no reason to outsource. We've never faced an audit yet, and most probably never will. An employee should be able to take care of compliance for us. We do not need a whole team of experts to manage it. The list goes on and on and on. Excuses, rebuttals. When you know what you're going to face, you can prepare for it with a plan. And as long as your response sounds smarter than the excuse to justify moving it forward, the conversation never stops. And that's how you eventually move it through the sales cycle to a close. So I'm going to share this document also. This is not my content. This is from Kaseya. We're partnered with Kaseya's rapid fire tools. We use their compliance manager for compliance as a service. And then some of their tools to run our network assessment. So very good content here, very relevant to our training here today. All right, so I'll share all of that. The fourth element is to know every scenario that we could potentially walk into. Every business is different, but every business is the same if you can compartmentalize it into what the scenario is. So here's the scenarios. One, from a managed service perspective. Okay, scenario number one, they have an internal IT team. Typically, this will be in the form of having an IT manager or a director, and then they're going to have help desk. You can see here, we've got the prices of what these people typically cost. This is the number one thing that MSPs want to displace. We want to displace a company from having an internal IT team. Just outsource it to us at $150 a user, and we'll be glad to take care of all that, and you won't need these people. Now, scenario number two, customer has an outsourced managed IT company, right? They're going to be paying per user, per server, and now cyber and cloud and all these other applications are going to be a part of that, or should be. The good news is most of these companies haven't transitioned to becoming an MSSP, and they don't offer cyber and compliance and cloud, right? If they do, they're outsourcing it. So not their services internally. Scenario number three, customer has a hybrid. They got people in-house, they've got an outsourced team, right? So typically an IT director and then an outsourced IT company. We see all three of these scenarios all the time, right? Scenario number four, smaller companies. Brady's company works with smaller SMB customers, 1 to 15 users. And we see this all the time when we have conversations with those small companies. No one takes care of it. The owner is taking care of the IT, but they don't have a company. They don't have an internal person that's all that they do. These are the only 4 scenarios that exist on the planet. When you can break it down and compartmentalize, this is the scenario that I'm walking into. Now you know, when I walk into this scenario, there is a certain type of vernacular that has to be used, right, to impulse the customer in this scenario to do business with us. And there's a certain way that we have to craft the solution given their scenario to get what we want, which is a closed deal. So that is the 4 scenarios that we run into. That feeds right into our key decision maker positions that we could speak to, and then the impulse statements that we say to these individuals. So come back over and let's take a look at what those are. So we have the CEO and the owner. So the CEO or the owner, a lot of times they're one and the same when we're dealing with 30, 40, 50 users and below, right? The CFO, the CTO, and then you have key influencers, the IT director and the office manager. We find ourselves starting with these in our phase 1 audit process a lot of the time. But when we get to the phase 2, we want to have them bring the C-level to the meeting. Worst case scenario, if we conduct the phase 2 with an influencer, we demand now in the phase 2.5 to meet with the decision maker on site. And then the phase 3, before we will present, we have to have the decision maker in that meeting. But when we're having this conversation with these individuals, we have to know what impulses them versus the other people that we could be talking to. So give you the perfect example. If I'm talking to the CFO, who's responsible for the P&L of the entire company, dollars speaks to him. And his responsibilities as an executive, well, that speaks to him in volumes. So when we make this statement, Mr. CFO, listen, we're here to consult, educate, and advise you on how you can create a risk tolerance to people, right? Risk aversion to people inside of your company, because the way that you're set up today is you have, if they have an internal IT team, you've got a director of IT and you've got one person on your help desk. Well, what if they're driving to lunch and they're in an accident, or they split a lottery ticket and win and buy an island? And now you as the CFO are sitting here with 100 employees and you have no redundancy in place for your IT director and your help desk. You have a fiduciary responsibility to your company to put the redundancy in place. So worst case scenario, you need to create a hybrid environment where you have in-house IT and an outsourced company that can come in and replace these people in a moment's notice if need be. Otherwise, you're going to call me in a panic because Jimmy and Marty, right, just bailed in a worst case scenario for whatever reason. So speaking to the CFO and painting a picture of how he'll never be in that position of vulnerability, of liability, is critically important if you want to impulse him to allow us to move forward in the process. Now, or to close the deal, right? If we're talking to the IT director, right, it's completely different conversation. Mr. IT director, listen, you're probably like a Picasso painting. You probably get pulled in a million different directions. We actually have a slide on this that we share with IT directors that paint a picture of exactly what we're talking about. The CEO wants you to do this. They put, they try to put help desk on your plate. Now they want to try say that you can do the compliancy for the company because you're their IT department. You're one guy, right? And your bandwidth just keeps getting pulled and pulled and pulled. You're oversubscribed 1,000 times. What we're going to do is we're going to look at all your services. We're going to do an audit, and then we're going to build a solution that allows you to use dollars from other areas of the business to pay for the people that are going to complement you and your team. These aren't going to be W-2 employees that you don't have the budget for. These are going to be fractional services from a local handpicked vetted MSP that is in our program that are just going to come in and assist you. It's going to take things off of your plate versus putting things onto your plate. And then what's beautiful about me here at Blue Equinox is I'm going to be your advocate. I'm going to position you with all the information, all the education to present to your executive team to justify and to substantiate this addition to your IT department. So now it's not we're not talking about him winning a lottery ticket or getting in a car accident and getting replaced. That would be the worst thing in the world that you could say to that guy, because now you're going to create job security issues for him, and he's not going to want to have a conversation with us at all. He's going to try to shut us out. But when we talk about enhancing his life, simplifying his life, taking weight and responsibility off his plate, now he becomes our internal champion, and he's going to help promote and sell whatever solution we deem that business needs based on their size and the scope of their technology need. So let me see here. Matt. So you had a conversation with the law firm a couple weeks ago in New York. You went and visited them, and you were dealing with the IT director. When you approached him, what did you use as an impulse statement? And then let's share with everyone here today and who watches this in the future, the audience that led us to get in front of.
So we talked about our cybersecurity bundle with compliance and CISO hours, and he was very interested in that, and that compelled him to, my meeting was with him in Manhattan, and there was nobody in the office except the managing partner who happened to handle the compliance piece of it. And he was able to pull him into the meeting, which was excellent. You were on the call. He said he had 10 minutes. He ended up spending about 35, 40 minutes with us discussing compliance and what their needs were around cybersecurity.
Excellent. So perfect scenario for you of how this played out in real life, where you were dealing with an influencer, the IT director, and you compelled him with CISO services that our MSP would layer on to what he does to take that weight off of his plate, and then compliance as a service. And then that led us to get the decision maker, the CTO, the managing partner that is acting as a CTO, pulled into the meeting, correct?
Correct.
And now we have a proposal for how much MRR on the table with these guys.
It's 4,500 total per month.
4,500. Now, this is a key point for everybody listening right now. How much of that 4,500 is managed services per user today?
Almost all of it. The compliance piece is a very small part of maybe $500.
No. Let me back up with you, right? So we're proposing CISO and compliance as a service, but the managed service agreement that's not up to next year.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Consists
They're spending $14,000 a month or more on managed services outside of the cyber.
So we have a $4,500 proposal on the table, and it has 0 traditional managed services as a part of it, correct?
Correct.
That's a next year contract that's going to be, we've already priced it out with our MSP partner there. It's going to be a probably around a $11,000 to $12,000 MRR transaction that when we get in the door with the MSP and they become the CISO and they're delivering the compliance as a service, who thinks that if that goes the way that it's designed to go over the next 8 to 10 months, that we're going to get the managed services when that contract comes up that they have with a national MSP client? I do, because we're going to be there ready to pounce on it and take advantage of being present and owning security, owning compliance. And it just makes sense for us to take over the managed service contract that they're giving to a company that's not getting the job done holistically, because they're not even offering to do these things for the customer yet. So there's a perfect example of how we use whatever entry point we have into the company to impulse that person to get our audit process started, to eventually discover the information of what they have so that we can build a solution that solves their biggest problems with risk, liability, exposure today. All right, so coming back, and we're making good time. Know what truly makes us unique with our service offering. So if you're just like everyone else with your solution, and there's nothing that makes you special, then there's no reason why they should give you favoritism over anyone else. So what we have to do is we have to make ourselves unique each and every time to the customer so that they feel like we are special to them. Okay, we want them to feel like there is no one else like Blue Equinox and the MSP that they're recommending on the face of the planet. They are truly unique, a one-of-a-kind offering that I've never heard of and received before. If you're one of my MSP partners on this call, you probably feel that way about our Engine Partner Program. That is what we hear the most. We've never seen or heard anything like it because there's nothing out there that exists like it. Well, we want to create that same feeling every time we sit down to meet with a customer. So these are a few of the things that we've bulleted out to paint the picture of how we become truly unique and different from everyone else. And there's some beautiful flyers on the MSP side that I'll drop with this. But for Blue Equinox, the first thing we do is, hey, Mr. Customer, the knowledge from us is going to be free. We're never going to charge you for what we do to educate, inform, and build solutions for you. Matter of fact, we're going to actually give you free gifts on top of our knowledge. We're going to create a heat map, a roadmap, cost analysis. You're going to have the opportunity to earn gift cards when you meet with certain partners in our portfolio. And then if you like what we show you, our truly unique value proposition is our white glove project management and account management services that we offer your company 100% free for as long as you're a customer. And then to top it all off, if Blue Equinox can't show you at least one stop sign bullet point that makes you want to stop what you're doing with that service and move forward with a better solution that we have helped you get educated and informed on, we will give you a $1,000 check. So this makes us unique because not many people are willing to do this work for free on the front end. They don't have the project management on the back end, and they certainly don't offer a guarantee. Now, for the MSP, how have we positioned them to be unique in the marketplace? Well, we have, and I'm just going to pull it up real quick because it's way prettier than my Excel workbook that I'm working out after this lesson. For you guys that don't know me, I don't like PowerPoints. I try to avoid them at all costs. All right. So when we talk about the MSP, right, we've literally created this beautiful chart that shows how our MSPs that we've handpicked and vetted and put through a rigorous development process are unique in their own right compared to any other MSP that they might be doing business with or talking to, and definitely unique and different to their in-house IT who has no time to do the R&D and the discovery to keep up with how fast the world is evolving from a cybersecurity and compliancy perspective. So this is literally a sales tool that we use to really build you up as the MSP of choice, the provider of choice for these solutions that we're going to be recommending. No one else is doing this. So it truly does make your MSP unique. So just to walk through these, right? One of the things that we do in our audit process before they ever even see a solution is we're willing to come on site, do this, the network scan, the data scan. A lot of companies will do a network scan, right? Put an analyzer on the network, see how many devices are touching your network, right? Very common for almost any MSP to offer this. But a data scan, what is a data scan? It's where we literally go out and look for public or private information on their company or employees that could be out on the internet. Tax returns, anything, financials, bank statements. There's tons of data that gets sucked out onto the dark web. We'll do a dark web scan. Dark web scans check for credentials, passwords, username and passwords to their systems, to emails, so on and so forth. Bad guys are willing to pay for lists of emails with username and passwords for customers. They'll buy them and try to phish in ransomware attack the customer. So we do those dark web scans. And then if they move forward, there's a constant dark web scan going on all the time. Like I got an email 2 mornings ago on how someone set up a domain name similar to Blue Equinox, right? And it had my email with a similar domain name version, and that's going to lead to a phishing attack attempt. That is the reality of the world. So we need those dark web scans. Software scan, where we literally go through their CRM, their email, their financial software. Like we literally scan their softwares to look for weaknesses, right? Phishing simulation, their people. This is where we'll run a phishing simulation to see just how many people are falling for these fake ransomware attacks that one day will be real, so that we can educate and inform those people so they don't make that mistake when it's a real scenario. And then we're going to build a full comprehensive cybersecurity assessment report that we provide them. And then we're going to offer CISO services and compliance as a service because we're an MSSP and we have that capability. We've even got artificial intelligence software with behavioral learning that will proactively protect your company. It'll automatically solve and triage support issues that come up. This is cutting edge technology that our MSPs have available to offer you, Mr. Customer, that your internal IT team or the MSP that you're doing business with today, well, they've not even come across this yet because they don't do constantly R&D, research and development on how they be the most relevant provider of services for their customers. And that's why Blue Equinox and our MSPs partnered together give you the best solution that you could ever hope for from an IT technology, cyber, and compliance perspective. Doesn't that sound good? That just sounds good. I like the way that rolls off the tongue. So we've got to be unique every single time. All right, moving right along. Know what our guarantees are. Know what our guarantees are that we offer to customers to participate in our audit experience. Okay, so this is pretty simple. Our guarantee, $1,000 guarantee. If we don't show you at least one thing we can improve, we guarantee that you're going to get 3 people added to your IT department. You're going to get your consultant, project manager, account manager with Blue Equinox every single time. We'll never lock you into a contract. So Blue Equinox doesn't do contracts. We do a letter of agency that's literally on a day-to-day basis. If they want to cancel their letter of agency, all you got to do is give it to us in writing, and we are no longer your letter of agency. Okay, so there's no contract with Blue Equinox. And then my favorite one to talk about, we have an iron fist guarantee. An iron fist guarantee is if our vendors don't come through with the service and the response time that we sign you up for, well, we're going to go and we're going to apply our iron fist to that relationship to ensure that you get what you need and want. Customers love hearing that. They love knowing that there's someone that will help hold the service providers accountable if they decide to do business with them, because most salespeople make a sale and then disappear, and they're left to deal with that relationship on their own. And then Blue Equinox, our services are 100% free. For the MSP, right, our guarantees are, if you move forward with us with a recommended solution, our scans and our reports that you would typically pay $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for, well, those are going to be free. That's a guarantee that if you move forward, that'll be a free service. And then if there's no improvement or benefit from the scans and reports, so if we have a conversation with you and we move forward with the scans and reports and we come back and there's not a single thing that we can do to improve your environment, and there's nothing that we can consult and sell you on, well, then we're not going to charge for that work, because we shouldn't have been here wasting your time or our time to begin with. Now, here's what we know is consultants and MSPs. That's never going to happen. Not a single time, because there's new products and services, there's improvements in pricing and processes that are always going to be present that we can always make up the recommendation of. So there's never going to be a scenario where we write $1,000 check, and there's never going to be a scenario where we have to give our work away for free. It is a marketing technique that gives the customer peace of mind that if those things were to ever happen in a mythical world where they were perfect, that they wouldn't have to pay for it. So moving on from guarantees, being dynamic and entertaining storyteller. Now, who makes great promises. This is the most probably important part of this training. Because if you cannot master these, then you're never going to be a great salesperson. Here's 11 different things that goes into being dynamic and entertaining. So I'm just going to run through these because there's 2 more areas that I'm going to need time for. Tone of voice. The way that we speak matters, because it brings the customer down or it rises them up with a tone of our voice. Body language. If you're not engaged, leaning into your customer, then it's a deterrent from where you want them to go. If you don't feel like you're engaged and focused, they're not going to feel engaged and focused. The way you dress, okay? Dean Maynard right here on this call, first meeting, he's got a tie on, wearing a suit. I wear a suit and a tie every time I go in front of a customer. Every time I go in front of a customer on site, I wear a suit and tie my entire career. It just sets a precedent that, hey, I'm a professional and I'm not here to mess around. So the way that you dress, right, it makes you feel professional. It makes you feel a certain way. So dress for success is what we say. Now, polos for MSPs, you guys are crawling in and under tables and doing work and pulling wire and stuff like that. So you got to be comfortable. You know, it's a little harder to wear a long sleeve shirt and a tie to every single meeting, especially if you're going to be doing work. But we can dress professional. Like you guys can see Patrick's picture there. You know, he's got a polo on, he's ready to go. Brady's in a suit and tie. Brady runs an MSP, but his picture there, he's in a suit and tie. So dressing matters. And then how much you sleep. As MSP operators, as IT consultants, we become a part of what we do. Like it is innately a part of who we are as a human being. There's no getting around it. If you want to be the best of the best, like you got to be all in with our industry and what we do. So, but you got to get your sleep, because if you don't have sleep, you're not able to stay on top of your game. And then you've got to speak with passion, right? It's got to exude out of your body into the person that you're speaking to. And that just comes from applying energy to your words. It's a physical thing that you do to exude passion. Most people just choose not to do it because they think, well, if they hear me, it doesn't matter whether or not they feel me. And that's not true. If you feel me, you're going to want to do business with me. So you got to be passionate. And then you got to speak with confidence and certainty that you just absolutely know right down to the ground that if they do what you're recommending, that they're going to be okay. And there's no doubt in your mind that it is the absolute only best solution that there is, and they have to do it if they want to solve their problem. Product knowledge comes into play for that. So you got to know your product knowledge. You got to understand, you don't just got to know about it, right? We could all know about what managed services is. We could all know what cybersecurity SOC is a service, for example, 24/7 SOC service, what it is, right? And describe it. But how is it applicable to the business? How does that product applied to their world solve their problems on a day-to-day basis? Like for MSPs, for example, your biggest problems as an MSP is people, proven process, products, and pricing. If we solve those 4 problems for an MSP, the MSP is going to soar in new revenue. It takes people, proven process, products, and pricing with profitability to get there. So 5 P's. Same thing with a customer. We've got to know how the products are applicable in their business. Repetitiveness. Say things over and over because people don't hear you the first time. They hear it, and we all got ADD, right? Half you guys, the video's off, right? You might be multitasking right now. So I've got to repeat it over and over and over so that it sticks. Same thing when you're meeting with a customer. And then to be really dynamic and entertaining, you got to be a little bit mysterious. There's always got to be some door that's next that we need to walk through. So, Mr. Customer, in the phase 2 meeting, we're going to introduce you to the CISO and the technical team. We're going to do a deep dive discovery, and then that's going to give us the opportunity to move to a 2.5 that we'll talk to you about in the next meeting. I just created mystery. Man, this is a good movie. I'm enjoying this. I want to come back to the phase 2 to see what the next sequel in the movie looks like. And that's what pulls them through into this conversation when you can create some mystery in your sales process. And then always, with confidence and certainty, assume that you're going to get the business. Assume the sale forever, every single time, because you are so confident and certain right down to the ground that this is absolutely what they need. And then last but not least, my favorite, have fun with it. If you've ever run a meeting with me, I talk to customers like I've known them my whole life, like they're my best friends. I tell jokes, I try to make them laugh while I'm doing all of these other things. It's a very serious subject, but at the same time, we're all people, and we want to build that rapport and establish that human connection with the people that we're doing this very serious business with, and we got to be able to have fun with those people. So these are 11 of the attributes that contribute to being dynamic and entertaining that feed into being a highly successful salesperson. And these can all be worked on and improved on. Even if you're not great at these, you can work on it when you have the wherewithal that this is something that you need to focus on. All right. The 10th thing to being highly successful. This comes from the EOS model. If you don't know EOS, Entrepreneur's Operating System, we operate on it here at Blue Equinox, and we help MSPs implement it. Strati just started it at his MSP up in Sacramento, and he's starting to operate on the EOS model. You see there, he gave us a thumbs up, and it just gives you a framework of how you operate your business and how your employees contribute to the big rocks every quarter that you want to accomplish. And part of their philosophy is every person in your organization is a contributor. And in order to know that you have the right person in the right seat on the bus, right? James Collins' book, Good to Great. That person, you've got to be able to check the box that they get it. They understand the process from start to finish of what they want to try to accomplish. Then they got to want it. Do you want it because of what it does for you in your life? If you do, you'll do the work to perfect your craft and hone your skills. And then the last one, are you capable of doing it? The biggest problem for MSPs doing sales is they're in the wrong seat on the bus because they don't have a proven process. They don't have these 11 attributes of being highly successful at the job. So it needs to be delegated to someone else, unless they truly take the time to learn it and to execute and to do it, which is, it can be done. It can be done. It just may not be an efficient use of your time, which is why we exist here at Blue Equinox. So the question is, are you capable of the things you see here? That answer is yes, if you want it bad enough. If you want it bad enough. Okay, the last thing here, I'm going to talk through this, coming back over to I've got 9 minutes here. The last thing, after you get it, want it, and become capable of doing it, the 11th thing is you have to invest time, energy, desire, resources, and faith into what you want to become. And I'm going to share this document with everyone with these attributes when I'm done, but I'm going to pull it up here. So our brand ambassadors go through a training, and we create the concept of, as a king or a queen, man or woman, that you are building your kingdom. And you're starting from the ground when you're at the very beginning, the foundation. And what has to be done, if you want to be the best of the best at what you do, is you've got to be willing to put time into it. And time is one of the biggest prices that we pay, because there is only 168 hours in a week. And we break it down into 4 core competencies. We break it down into our bodies and how we take care of it, our being, how we keep our minds focused and clean, and then balance with the people that we have in our lives, and then business. Well, for us in this industry, there's probably not a single person as a brand ambassador or an MSP that works less than 60 hours a week. And some of us work up to 100 hours a week. I work from 6 a.m. to 12 midnight on Monday because I was recording video content. It took freaking forever. So you got to be willing to invest the time into being what you want to be. Otherwise, it's never going to happen. The second thing is time alone is not good enough. We have to apply energy and effort to the process, right? And what it means is we have to try hard to perfect our skills and to hone our skills and to perfect our craft of whatever it is that we're doing. We cannot be complacent and say that this is good enough, because the moment you accept good enough is when the competition starts to gain on you and you become antiquated over time. And that's the biggest problem that we see, is people have become complacent because they've gotten comfortable, and now the industry or the world has evolved around them. So we always have to be applying energy. And then the third thing is desire. Desire. You've got to actually truly want it to happen. Like, you got to care about it more than anything else that you care about. If you're going to do something, if you're giving your time and you're applying energy, well, you need to long for it. You need to desire it to happen. It marries up to time and energy, as you see here. So time, energy, desire. The fourth thing, money, which is a resource. Anything that we want to accomplish greatness at, we have to be willing to invest in that, to spend money. I went to a conference last week in Austin, right? I had to pay for a hotel, an airfare, the conference itself, food. Right? I probably dropped $1,500 to $2,000 to go to that conference for 2 days. That is an example of what we have to do to gain knowledge, which is power, takes our time. We have to apply energy. We have to have a desire of what we're going to use it for. And we've got to be willing to spend money, which we're all spending resources. So money is just one of many resources that we have to be willing to invest to get what we want. And then the last one here, my favorite, is faith. Faith. Every time we go into a sale, that conversation might have started with the customer not even wanting to speak to us because they're all good. We're all good. We're all good. You're not nothing, right? You are anything but all good. You are broken and you are ill prepared for the future. You just don't know it yet. That's what we're going to help you with. So we overcome that excuse with our rebuttals, and we slowly start the process to educate, inform, build rapport and relationship and build solutions. And ultimately, next thing we know, we've closed that customer. Why? Because we had a proven process. We knew what we were going to say before we found ourselves in the situation, and we had faith that if we just go through the motions, everything that we want to accomplish in this scenario will be accomplished. The definition of faith is a belief in something that is real, but does not yet currently exist, which is that next sales order that we're going to pull in the door once we execute on our proven process. Okay, so with that being said, if we master these 11 attributes, hone our skills, perfect our craft, there's no scenario that we'll find ourselves in where we won't have the words. We won't have the words to compel and to motivate, to seduce whoever we're speaking to into what we want to get accomplished, because we know it's what's best for them, right? It's very hard to sell something that's not real, that isn't the best scenario, right? We have to feel it in our hearts. We have to feel it in our hearts. We have to believe it in our minds. And that is where the customer starts to feel it and to believe it also. So I'd love to get some feedback. I pulled a couple of brand ambassadors in to speak to you guys, but I'd love to hear from a couple of our engine partners. Dean, you run a highly successful company and you're a new client in our program. What's your thoughts on this 11 attributes of highly successful salespeople training?
No, I agree that it's spot on. I really believe in this, and I know that it works. And the my thought is that I just wish more people would get enrolled in this whole concept. It's, it takes time though. It doesn't happen overnight, but with the discipline, it's totally legit.
Absolutely. Discipline. I love that word, man. I love that word because it takes a discipline in the beginning for us to learn anything new, to do anything new, to make a transformation, right? Like when we talk about adding products and services to our portfolios and MSP, we're like, oh my gosh, another product, another technology, right? Another service that we got to deploy. Well, yeah, unfortunately, that's what's required for our industry in this day and age. If we want to stay relevant and competitive and make those $200-300 MRR tickets per user, that's what we're going to have to do. So discipline in all facets, right? From sales to operations, it requires discipline. Strati, you've experienced working with several of our brand ambassadors in the field on deals. Do you feel like you see these attributes exude from those individuals as an MSP partner working with our guys?
Yeah, absolutely. They're, in addition to displaying all those attributes, just very professional and great to work with. Yes. Beautiful,
beautiful, man. Okay. Well, does anybody have any questions for me? We're coming up to the top of the hour, and if there's any questions that you guys have. Beautiful. Well, if there's no questions, I'll get the video edited. I'll get it added to the master training workbook, and I'll get it added to the calendar invite. And you guys can come back. You can visit any of these trainings that we would have done in the past. And then the ones in the future will also be here if you can't make it. But I really appreciate everyone's attention and attendance today. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Thank you guys. See you next week.